Saturday mornings in the late 1980s meant one thing: pure chaos in the best possible way. A gray-suited man-child screaming at a secret word, talking furniture, a genie in a box, and some of the strangest puppet characters ever created for television. Behind that colorful facade was a production that cost as much as primetime sitcoms, employed future Hollywood legends when they were unknown, and featured a production assistant who would later become a heavy metal horror icon. This is Pee-wee's Playhouse, 1986. 15 weird facts you didn't know.
Strange play where everybody wore a lot of makeup and robes, even the men.
Number 15. The budget was absolutely insane for Saturday morning TV. When CBS agreed to produce Pee-wee's Playhouse in 1986, they gave Paul Reubens something almost unheard of for a Saturday morning children's show: $325,000 per episode. To put that in perspective, that was the same budget as primetime sitcoms of the era. Most Saturday morning cartoons were produced for a fraction of that amount, relying on cheap animation and minimal production costs. Shows like He-Man, G.I. Joe, and Transformers were essentially half-hour toy commercials made as cheaply as possible. But Reubens had leverage after the massive success of Pee-wee's Big Adventure in 1985, and he used it to demand complete creative control and a budget that would let him realize his vision properly. CBS had initially approached Reubens about creating an animated version of Pee-wee, but he rejected that idea outright. He wanted to do a real kids show, something in the tradition of Howdy Doody and Captain Kangaroo, shows he'd loved as a child. CBS gave him what he wanted because they believed Pee-wee could deliver ratings. The network agreed, and that massive budget showed in every frame. The elaborate sets were built with the same care as movie sets. The puppets were custom designed and operated by skilled puppeteers. The animation sequences were commissioned from top artists and studios. The costumes looked expensive because they were expensive. Everything had a level of quality that Saturday morning television had never seen before. Other networks were spending maybe $50,000 per episode on Saturday morning programming. CBS was spending 6 times that amount on Pee-wee's Playhouse, and it paid off in ratings and critical acclaim.
Cartoon begin.
Number 14. Paul Reubens often paid out of his own pocket. Even with that enormous budget, it wasn't enough for Reubens. He was a perfectionist who wanted everything exactly right, and if that meant spending more money, he'd reach into his own wallet. Reubens later admitted that the show went over budget every single season, sometimes by significant amounts. If a door was the wrong color or the wrong size, Reubens would insist on rebuilding it entirely, regardless of cost. He acknowledged he was great at many aspects of producing, but terrible at staying within financial limits, because he would always choose quality over budget concerns. Some seasons went so far over budget that Reubens personally covered massive overruns just to make sure the show met his standards. He never publicly disclosed exactly how much of his own money he spent, but he indicated it was substantial, enough that it represented a real financial sacrifice. Most producers would have compromised, would have said good enough was good enough, but Reubens couldn't do that. He cared too much about making sure every detail was perfect. This perfectionism extended to everything. The sets had to look exactly right. The props had to function properly. The costumes had to fit perfectly and look vibrant on camera. The animation had to be smooth and polished. Nothing could be half done or cheap looking. Reubens understood that children deserved quality entertainment, and he was willing to pay for it himself if necessary. It's a level of commitment that's almost unheard of in television production, where staying on budget is usually the first priority. Number 13. Rob Zombie worked as a production assistant. Before he became the horror film director and heavy metal musician we know today, Rob Zombie was just another crew member trying to make it in entertainment. Right around the time he was forming White Zombie, Zombie worked as a production assistant on Pee-wee's Playhouse. He was part of the behind-the-scenes crew making the magic happen, hauling equipment and helping with whatever needed doing. Production assistants do the grunt work on any production, Setting up equipment, moving furniture, getting coffee, running errands, whatever needs to be done to keep things moving. It's entry-level work, but it gets you in the door and lets you learn how productions operate. Zombie was just starting out, trying to figure out his path in entertainment, and Pee-wee's Playhouse gave him that opportunity. It's one of those strange Hollywood connections that seems impossible until you remember that everyone has to start somewhere. The man who would later create House of 1,000 Corpses and The Devil's Rejects spent time in his early career working on one of the most colorful, child-friendly shows ever made. The contrast couldn't be more extreme, but it shows how diverse careers in entertainment can be. Those early experiences working on professional productions taught Zombie valuable lessons about filmmaking that he'd later apply to his own projects.
It's important to drink lots of water. It's something that everybody needs to stay healthy.
Number 12. The theme song was created by musical legends. That incredibly catchy opening theme that got stuck in your head every Saturday morning wasn't just thrown together by some contract composer. It was co-composed by Mark Mothersbaugh of Devo and performed by none other than Cyndi Lauper, though she was credited under the pseudonym Ellen Shaw. Mothersbaugh was responsible for much of the show's music throughout its run, bringing his distinctive new wave sensibility to a children's program. Mark Mothersbaugh had to create multiple remixes of the opening music before Reubens was satisfied. When designer Phil Hartridge showed up to present his work on the opening title sequence, he found Mothersbaugh waiting outside Reubens' dressing room with a cassette boombox, ready to audition yet another version of the theme. Mothersbaugh was on his 10th remix, trying to get it exactly right to match Reubens' vision. The theme perfectly captured the manic energy of the show, fast-paced, colorful, and impossible to ignore. Cyndi Lauper's distinctive voice gave it personality and charm. Other episodes featured music from cutting-edge artists like Todd Rundgren, Mitchell Froom, Danny Elfman, Van Dyke Parks, and The Residents. Pee-wee's Playhouse had a soundtrack that rivaled anything on MTV, which made sense since many viewers were watching specifically because it felt like MTV for kids. Fast cuts, bright colors, and music that actually sounded contemporary rather than the generic library music most children's shows used. Number 11. The first season was filmed in a sweatshop. Production for the first season began in summer 1986 in New York City, in a converted loft on Broadway. One of the show's writers, George McGrath, described it as a sweatshop, and he wasn't exaggerating. The building was an old warehouse with small Asian ladies sewing garments in the floor above them. You could hear the sewing machines through the ceiling. The elevator was so loud that they had to stop elevator service entirely whenever they were recording sound, which meant cast and crew had to climb stairs when they needed to move between floors during recording. It wasn't a proper soundstage. It was a makeshift studio where the crew worked in cramped, hot conditions to bring the Playhouse to life. There was no air conditioning that worked properly, so during that first summer in New York, everyone was sweating under hot lights while wearing costumes and operating puppets. The working conditions were rough enough that when production moved to Los Angeles for season 2, moving to Hollywood Center Studios created what crew members described as a much more relaxed atmosphere. Despite the difficult conditions, that first season was magical. The crew knew they were making something special, something different from anything else on television. The discomfort and challenges actually brought people together, created a sense of shared mission. They were all in it together, trying to make Paul Reubens' vision real, despite the limitations of their location and equipment.
Cookie 2000, ready to assist you, Pee-wee.
Number 10. CBS killed ABC in the ratings because of people meters. When Nielsen introduced people meters in the late 1980s to measure television viewership more accurately, it completely changed Saturday morning ratings in ways nobody anticipated. ABC had been targeting its Saturday morning cartoons toward preschoolers, assuming that would build a loyal young audience that would grow up watching ABC. The problem was that preschoolers couldn't operate the people meters. They were too young to understand the instructions and properly log their viewing. Meanwhile, Pee-wee's Playhouse attracted both children and adults. Kids loved it because it was fast-paced and colorful and never talked down to them. Adults loved it because it reminded them of classic children's shows from their own childhood while adding modern sensibilities and clever humor that worked on multiple levels. And crucially, the adults could operate the people meters, so Pee-wee's viewership was being properly counted. As a result, CBS absolutely destroyed ABC in the Saturday morning ratings once people meters were introduced. The vice president of ABC later admitted they got killed because their audience was too young to register on the new measurement system. This forced ABC to shift its programming strategy in 1988 to shows that would appeal to both kids and adults, helping begin that network's recovery. Pee-wee's Playhouse had accidentally revolutionized how networks thought about Saturday morning programming. You couldn't just target kids anymore. You needed to create shows that would bring in viewers of all ages.
Hey, secret word.
He wants to know what today's secret word is!
Number 9. Laurence Fishburne played Cowboy Curtis. Long before he was Morpheus in The Matrix, before he starred in Boys in the Hood, before he became one of Hollywood's most respected dramatic actors, Laurence Fishburne was Cowboy Curtis, one of the most beloved characters on Pee-wee's Playhouse. He was credited as Larry Fishburne at the time, a name he used early in his career before switching to Laurence. Fishburne had worked with Reubens in the original Groundlings Theater production of The Pee-wee Herman Show in the early 1980s, and when the TV series happened, Reubens brought him along. Cowboy Curtis appeared regularly throughout the show's run as Pee-wee's friend who would show up with his lasso and cowboy hat, bringing an Old West sensibility to the otherwise futuristic Playhouse. Fishburne brought real charm and energy to what could have been a throwaway character. He never phoned it in, never treated it as just a paycheck. He committed fully to making Cowboy Curtis someone kids would remember and love. It's surreal to watch now, knowing that the friendly cowboy teaching kids about friendship and sharing is the same actor who would later become one of Hollywood's most respected dramatic performers. But Fishburne has never expressed embarrassment about his time on the show. Like many cast members, he's proud of what they created and grateful for the opportunity Paul Reubens gave him early in his career. Number 8. S. Apatha Murkerson was Reba, the mail lady. Another future star who got her start on the show was S. Apatha Murkerson, who played Reba the mail lady. Murkerson would later become famous for her role as Lieutenant Anita Van Buren on Law and Order, where she appeared for 17 seasons and became one of the longest-serving cast members in the franchise's history. She earned an Emmy Award for that role and became a beloved fixture of television drama. But in 1986, she was delivering mail to Pee-wee's Playhouse and doing it with the same professionalism and warmth she'd bring to everything else in her career. Reba was more than just a mail delivery character. She was a friend who brought news from the outside world and often participated in the day's activities. Murkerson gave her depth and personality that made kids actually look forward to mail delivery time. The show was remarkable for its diverse casting at a time when children's television was predominantly white. Reubens made a point of creating a truly inclusive cast and crew, which was revolutionary for 1980s children's programming. The Playhouse featured Black characters, Latino characters, characters of different ages and body types. It looked like America actually looked, rather than the sanitized, homogeneous version most children's shows presented. This wasn't done for political correctness or to make a statement. Reubens simply believed his show should reflect the real world and include people who looked like his audience. Number 7. Phil Hartman was Captain Carl before SNL. Before Saturday Night Live made him a household name, before news radio showcased his brilliant comic timing, before his tragic death in 1998 shocked the entertainment world, Phil Hartman was Captain Carl on Pee-wee's Playhouse. Hartman had also been part of the Groundlings with Reubens and had appeared in the original stage show in Los Angeles. The two had a long creative partnership and deep friendship. Captain Carl was the nautical character who often showed up with tales of adventure on the high seas. He'd arrive in his sailor outfit and tell stories about his travels, usually getting into some kind of mild trouble that Pee-wee and the gang would help resolve. Hartman brought the same impeccable comic timing to Pee-wee's Playhouse that he'd later bring to SNL, though few kids watching on Saturday mornings had any idea they were watching a future comedy legend in the making. Hartman's ability to play straight men and authority figures with just a hint of absurdity made Captain Carl memorable. He never winked at the camera or made it seem like he was above the material. He committed to the character completely, which is part of what made him such an effective performer throughout his career. His work on Pee-wee's Playhouse was training for everything that came later, learning how to hit marks, how to work with puppets and props, how to maintain energy through multiple takes.
Whenever anyone says the secret word, right?
Number 6, the Christmas special featured an all-star guest list. In December 1988, CBS aired the Pee-wee's Playhouse Christmas special in prime time, and it featured one of the most eclectic collections of guest stars ever assembled for any television program. Cher showed up in full costume and makeup. So did Grace Jones, bringing her distinctive presence. K.D. Lang performed. Charo brought her signature energy. Joan Rivers delivered jokes. Magic Johnson claimed to be Magic Screen's cousin, creating a delightfully silly running gag. The guest list kept going. Whoopi Goldberg, Oprah Winfrey, Annette Funicello, Frankie Avalon, Dinah Shore, Little Richard, and Zsa Gabor all made appearances. The Del Rubio triplets performed. The special was an hour long and absolutely packed with celebrities who all seemed genuinely delighted to be part of Pee-wee's world. None of them treated it as beneath them or as a novelty. They threw themselves into the Christmas celebration with real enthusiasm. It was a testament to how much cultural cash the show had built in just 2 years. These weren't has-beens desperate for exposure. These were major stars at the peaks of their careers who wanted to be associated with something that had become a cultural phenomenon. The special became an annual holiday tradition for many families and showcased just how thoroughly Pee-wee's Playhouse had penetrated American pop culture.
Hello, Pee-wee. Rita gave me a letter to give you, but I forgot where I put it.
Number 5. The show won 22 Emmy Awards. Pee-wee's Playhouse wasn't just popular, it was critically acclaimed in ways that Saturday morning television had never experienced before. The show won 22 Emmy Awards over its 5-season run, an extraordinary number for any program, let alone a Saturday morning children's show. In its first season alone, it won 6 Emmys, dominating categories for children's programming, art direction, costume design, and more. The show also won multiple Peabody Awards, which honor excellence in broadcasting and recognize programs that make important contributions to American culture. Pee-wee's Playhouse won basically every educational and children's programming award available. Critics recognized that Pee-wee's Playhouse wasn't just entertaining kids, it was actually good television, period. The writing was sharp and clever. The production values were exceptional, rivaling anything on prime time. The show never talked down to its audience, treating children as intelligent viewers who could appreciate sophisticated humor and creative storytelling. This critical acclaim was important because it validated what the cast and crew had been working so hard to achieve. They weren't just making another Saturday morning show to babysit kids while parents slept in. They were creating art, pushing boundaries, showing what children's television could be when given proper resources and creative freedom.
Pee-wee. Best regards, Herman.
Number 4. Aardman Animations provided stop-motion sequences. Years before Wallace and Gromit made them famous worldwide, Aardman Animations provided some of the stop-motion clay animation sequences for Pee-wee's Playhouse. The British studio was relatively unknown in the United States at the time, but Reubens recognized their talent and brought them in to create segments for the show. Aardman's distinctive style, detailed clay figures with expressive faces and smooth, fluid movement, added yet another visual dimension to an already visually rich program. Those clay animation sequences, along with the penny cartoons and various other animated interludes, gave the show even more visual variety and showcased cutting-edge animation techniques that most American audiences had never seen before. Every episode was a showcase of different animation styles and approaches: traditional hand-drawn animation, stop-motion clay animation, puppet animation, computer graphics, and more. It was like an animation festival compressed into a half-hour children's show. Reubens wanted kids to see the best of everything, to be exposed to art and creativity in forms they might never encounter elsewhere. Bringing in Hartman was part of that mission, showing American kids what talented British animators could create, expanding their visual vocabulary and appreciation for different artistic styles.
Conky, start the music!
Number 3, the show almost started as sideways stories from Wayside School. Before Pee-wee's Playhouse took its final form, there were early discussions about basing it on Louis Sachar's sideways stories from Wayside School, with Pee-wee hosting episodes. The concept would have had Pee-wee presenting stories from the bizarre school in Sachar's books, a 30-story school building that was accidentally built sideways with one classroom on each floor, filled with eccentric teachers and students. It could have worked. Both Sachar's books and Pee-wee's sensibility shared a love of absurdity and gentle rule-breaking. But ultimately, the idea fell by the wayside, pun intended, and the team took all the creative concepts they'd developed and redirected them into what became Pee-wee's Playhouse. It's interesting to imagine what that version might have looked like, though it's hard to argue with the success of what they actually created. Sometimes the best ideas come from abandoning your first idea and starting fresh. Number 2, Paul Reubens decided to end the show, not CBS. There's a persistent myth that Pee-wee's Playhouse was canceled because of Reubens' 1991 arrest at an adult theater in Florida. The truth is more nuanced and less scandalous. The show had already ended its run before the arrest happened. The last original episode aired in November 1990. CBS had actually wanted a 6th season, but Reubens declined. He'd been playing Pee-wee full-time for years and was suffering from burnout. Reubens had warned people all along that Pee-wee was temporary and that he had other ideas he wanted to pursue. He'd been Pee-wee for a decade. The character had consumed his entire life. He couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. He couldn't have normal interactions with people. Everything was filtered through Pee-wee. After 5 seasons of the show, plus the movies and all the other Pee-wee-related work, he needed a break. The show ended after 5 seasons and 45 episodes because Reubens chose to move on. He also felt the show's quality had started to decline. The crew was exhausted from the demanding production schedule. Coming up with fresh ideas was getting harder. Better to end on a high note than let the show deteriorate. The arrest happened months later, in July 1991, and while it did cause CBS to immediately pull the reruns that were supposed to air through September, it wasn't why production stopped. The decision to end the show was made long before the scandal.
Let's mix them all together and make fruit punch!
Number 1. The show changed production facilities 3 times. Pee-wee's Playhouse filmed in 3 different locations over its 5 seasons, and each move brought significant changes to the production. The first season was shot in that converted New York warehouse, with all its challenges and limitations. When they decided to move to Los Angeles for season 2, they relocated to Hollywood Center Studios, which allowed for a completely new set and much better working conditions. The second set was larger, had better lighting capabilities, better sound isolation, and didn't require stopping the elevator every time they needed to record dialogue. Then for season 4 in 1989, production moved again to Culver Studios, also in Los Angeles. Each move brought changes to the show. Different crew members with different skills and approaches. Slightly different looks to the sets as designers refined what worked and fixed what didn't. New technological possibilities as equipment improved. The production was constantly evolving, always trying to improve and give viewers something fresh, which was part of why it maintained its quality and innovation throughout its run. These moves also reflected the show's growing success and budget. The first season was scrappy and improvised, making do with limited facilities. By season 4, they had the resources and reputation to work in proper studio facilities with all the equipment and support they needed. The physical journey of the production mirrored its creative journey, starting rough and experimental, becoming more polished and professional, but never losing the anarchic spirit that made it special. Pee-wee's Playhouse was lightning in a bottle, a perfect storm of creative talent, generous budget, cultural timing, and one man's absolute commitment to his vision. It took children's television seriously enough to give it movie-level production values while never losing the anarchic spirit that made it fun. The cast and crew included people who would go on to become some of entertainment's biggest names, but at the time, they were just trying to make the best show they could. The show proved that children's programming didn't have to be cheap or condescending. It demonstrated that kids could appreciate sophisticated humor, diverse casting, cutting-edge music, and artistic innovation. Watching it now, decades later, it still feels fresh and strange, and completely unlike anything else that came before or after. That's the mark of something truly special, something that transcends its era and remains relevant regardless of how much time passes. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel for more nostalgic content.